Welcome again to the Old Principle. I am the Old Principle, and this will be lesson number 27, Our Younger Son. 我们年轻的儿子. We have two sons. I have a tall son and a short son. And so we're going to talk about the short son. 有一个高，有一个矮. But we'll talk more about that in just a minute. First of all, I want to have Mrs. Ash, my wife, read the story, and then we'll come back and look at it in more detail.
Number 27, Our Younger Son. It is not easy to be the second child in the family. Unconsciously, people compare the second child with the first. As parents, we tried very hard to treat each son individually, and we carefully avoided comparing one child with the other. James was a little slower growing than John. In fact, he told me once that he didn't want to be tall like his brother. Instead, he wanted to be strong. His wish came true, at least partially. James only reached 195 centimeters, 6 feet 5 inches. But he is just as thin as his brother. John was very academic, but James had a harder time getting good grades. We encouraged and praised him for his efforts, but I'm sure he compared himself with his older brother. There was nothing about James that was very extraordinary. He was just a nice but very quiet person. In high school, things began to change. He discovered that he liked to sing. He joined the school choir, and the choir director seemed to take special interest in him. Slowly but surely he was gaining confidence in himself that he could do something that many others could not do. One Christmas he came home for a few weeks' vacation. He lay around the house with nothing to do. I challenged him to join me in studying for the amateur radio license tests. For a while he seemed interested, but when he went back to school he dropped the idea. Then, during his senior year of high school, some of his friends and teachers decided to take the amateur radio tests. Suddenly, he remembered how he had started, then petered out. He began cramming, and in 2 weeks' time he passed all 5 tests, even the 13-word-per-minute Morse code test. Oh, we were all impressed, but nobody more than he himself. For the first time he realized that he could accomplish anything that he really wanted to do.
Welcome back. Are you ready to begin? It is not easy to be the second child in the family. Now, I don't know if you've noticed it. In China, maybe because most of the families only have 2 children. I mean, 1 child, sorry. It's not 2, it's 1. Okay, so you don't probably have much experience with this. But in other places where there are more children in the family, usually the second child has more problems. Not always, 不过常常有这个现象, the second child. Now, unconsciously, people compare the second child with the first. Unconsciously, 不知不觉, 无意的. In other words, people compare, 把第一个孩子跟第二个孩子开始比较. But when they compare, they're not even thinking about it. It's just natural to do it that way. That's the reason why we say unconsciously, okay, which means 不知不觉或无意的, 不是故意的, Okay, so unconsciously, people compare the second child with the first child. Going on. As parents, we say 做父母亲, we tried very hard to treat each son individually. Okay? When it says we tried very hard, 我们很努力的, 很尽力的, okay? Treat each child the same, okay? And or individually. Now this is very important. I often said to my sons, you are different. So mom and dad treat you, 对待你, treat you differently. So we try not to compare the two of them. Of course, nowadays, my sons are grown men. Right now, the one is 42, the other is 38 years old, and they have children of their own. So they know that even now, what we do for one child may not be what we do for another one. But at least in our minds, we try to keep it almost equal. I mean, is value and time and things like that. We carefully avoided, 避免, good word to use, to avoid, 避免, what? Comparing one child with the other. 把 one 孩子跟另外一个孩子比较. We just did not do that. We tried to avoid that. But many parents have difficulty in this regard. So they, and it's usually, they usually put more emphasis on the first child. 当然是第一个孩子. But so the second child feels uncomfortable. This is very common. Going on. James, this is my second son, was slower growing than John. Okay, 发育, he was very slow. Of course, if you remember some of the stories that I was very slow in growing. So James was a little slower in growing. 发育比较慢. Growing, oh, you could say 生长也可以. Then John. In fact, 事实上, he told me once that he didn't want to be tall like his brother. 他不想像哥哥这么高. He is quite tall. My oldest son is 201, 201公分的. Taller than me, of course. And so James said that he did not want to be tall like his brother. 不像哥哥这么高啊. He said,反而他要what? To be 强有力. He didn't want to be tall. He wanted to be strong. Going on. Actually, his wish came true, at least partially. 至少他的梦想愿望他 actually 呈现 because James only reached 195 centimeters. That's all the taller he is. Not as tall. So, but 这个一点都不矮, right? Well, okay, he's pretty tall. Okay? Centimeters, 公分. Okay? 6 feet 5 inches. Okay? 6尺5 寸呢，这个是英尺英寸 ，OK, 6 feet 5 inches. But he was just as thin as his brother. 两位都很瘦. He was thin like his brother, so he never got to be the real strong man that he wanted to be. He ended up being quite tall, a little shorter than his brother, but not the strong man that he wanted to be. John was very academic. John was my oldest son. Okay, very academic. 学术化的. I mean, he liked to study. When we say academic, we mean academic means 学术. But in this case, academic means that when he studied, he got good grades. 他得了好的成绩啊, okay? But James had a harder time getting good grades. 他的弟弟 James had a harder time, 比较不容易怎么样 to get good grades, 获得好的成绩啊，得到好的成绩. It was just kind of difficult for James. Not like his brother, it was easy. James, much more difficult. Going on. We encouraged and praised him for his efforts. Of course, every parent should encourage 鼓励 and praise 赞美 their efforts, 他们的努力. So when you have a son or a daughter, always encourage them, always praise them, always affirm them. Affirm, 肯定他们. Now, this is very important 做父母亲 for parents that the child knows that the parents are supporting and affirming. Okay? But I'm sure at the end of the day, 总的来说, or maybe 终于 he compared himself with his older brother. You cannot get around that. I think, personally, that my own brother compared himself with me. I was academic, like my oldest son. I liked to go to school. My younger brother was not academic. Even though in childhood we were good friends and all of this, it still caused a little bit of friction, 有一点点摩擦, because he compared himself with me, his older brother. So my younger son did the same thing. Going on. There was nothing about James that was very extraordinary. Okay? There was nothing about James. James 一点都没有什么特点. See the word extraordinary? Extra, okay, 超 ordinary, 这个普通 or extraordinary is 特别或特殊. Okay, so it's nothing about him extraordinary. He was just a good, average person when he was growing up. He was just a nice but very quiet person. Nice, 他是好的好孩子. He was very nice, but 非常安静. You might say he was shy, 害羞. Okay, he was just a quiet person. 沉默, yeah, okay. He was just 很安静的一个人。Okay, going on. In high school, things began to change. Now, we did not have a high school very close to where we lived. In those days, we lived in Taiwan. And no, I guess we lived here in Hong Kong. And there was no school close by, so we had to send him to overseas. 要送他到国外念书，中学。So it was in high school, 在中学的时候 things began to change. He discovered that he liked to sing. Well, actually, it went something like this. One day, his teacher said to him, James, I want you to sing in a quartet. Quartet, 四重唱, 4 people. And he said, James, I want you to sing in a quartet. And he said, no way, I don't sing. And I don't sing in public. And the teacher said, but you do sing well. And it's kind of like, that was a new idea to him. So, oh, I can sing. So he discovered he liked to sing. Going on. He joined the school choir. And the choir director seemed to take special interest in him. OK, 他参与这个学校的合唱团 choir 合唱团 OK, and the choir director, that means the 合唱团的这个指挥 choir director, seemed to take special interest in him. 看起来好像是特别注意他。And he spent a lot of time encouraging James. And that's when he said, hey, you can sing in the quartet. Going on. Slowly but surely, he was gaining confidence in himself. When I say slowly but surely, it simply means 他慢慢的 we say it slowly but surely, but 就慢慢开始有一种这个自信心 confidence in himself. That, what kind of confidence? That he could do something that many others could not do. Now this is very important. 我做老校长 and I tell you, every parent, every teacher needs to help young people find something special. And this, in my estimation, was the first special thing that he found out about himself. I can sing. He didn't know that. And so he started to gain confidence in himself that he could sing and he could do something 别人没办法做，他可以做到。That's important. One Christmas, he came home for a few weeks vacation. Okay, he came home for a few weeks vacation. Actually, he went to school in Singapore. 他在新加坡念中学 Okay, so he came home for a couple weeks. 回家 Okay, a couple weeks. And he lay around the house with nothing to do. 无所事事呢，在家里待着。哎呀呀， he had nothing to do. He just lay around the house. And I said, what a father doesn't feel real comfortable about that, So, going on, I challenged him to join me in studying for the amateur radio license tests. Okay, 我给他一个挑战 Okay, to join me, 跟我一起 what? Study the amateur 业余电台的执照考试. See, ever since I was small, I had an interest in ham radio or amateur radio, 业余电台. I wanted to have my own 自己的电台. But in America and everywhere in the world, you have to take tests. So I challenged him, hey, let's take the tests. Going on. For a while, he seemed interested. 有一段时间，他好像是有兴趣. But when he got back to school, he dropped the idea. 就放弃一切. He was interested, but to drop the idea, 就放弃 studying for the amateur radio test, you see. Okay, now going on. Then during his senior year in high school, this is his senior year in high school. Already he lives in America, and he's in a high school in America. Some of his friends and teachers decided to take the amateur radio test. 有些老师，有些学生想要考这个业余电台考试. And then suddenly it's just like, oh, this is something my dad was talking about. Okay, suddenly he's remembering what we had discussed before going on. Suddenly he remembered how he had started and then petered out. What does it mean to peter out? 半途而废了, okay? 半途而废了. In other words, he started strong during that Christmas vacation, and then he kind of petered out. Okay, so he remembered that. Going on. He began cramming. Okay, what does it mean to cram? Do you know what it means to cram? Cram means 这个死记硬背死记硬背. I'll make sure I get the Chinese right. I hope you understand. That means he was working very hard for 2 weeks, and he passed 5 tests. Usually, okay, most of us take long time. He just passed 5. 这个是国家的考试. It's not, and included was 13 word a minute Morse code test. Okay, 摩尔氏电码. 13 words a minute. Wow, I passed it. 我自己也通过，但是我用了7个月才通过. He used 2 weeks. Going on. We were all impressed. All of us were impressed. This is my son. This is the son who is not academic. This is the young man who doesn't like to study. I took 7 months to pass the test, 才能够通过这些考试. He took 2 weeks. Oh, we were all impressed. 都打动我们了，感动我们了, impressed. But nobody more than himself. 但是呢，没有一个人 打动的比他还有多。In other words, what is happening? I think this is important. I wish I could emphasize it over and over again to parents. Find something special. And when a child finds something special, they will begin to do something very special. 他自己自信心呢要提高。And he was impressed. And this is the conclusion he came to. Going on. For the first time, 他人生第一次 he realized 意识到 that he could accomplish anything that he really wanted. Simply means he could accomplish anything that he wanted. 无论是什么东西，他能够做到。And this was like beep beep, like a new idea to him. Do you see what's happening? And all children are exactly the same. It's not special to my son. 不是我儿子的特点。No, every child needs to gain confidence in himself. And a parent needs to give many opportunities, 很多机会学习, and slowly but surely they become special and they trust themselves. Oh man, I could spend a lot of time on this. 老校长, okay, 的哲学. Okay, anyway, going on here, we have an email address. 我们电邮地址是theoldprinciple@gmail.com. And our website is www.theoldprinciple.org. Hey, it's been great to spend these few minutes with you, and I hope that you'll join us next time for another interesting lesson. Until then, bye-bye.